Time for business. Kate joins us. US lawmakers have given a final green light to the $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package. This is a whopping deal, isn't it?
It's pretty big, and it's a major political victory for the U.S. president. The vote in the House of Representatives was largely along party lines, 224, 211 against. The White House saying President Biden will sign the legislation into law on Friday. The plan includes money for state governments, funding for school and vaccine programs, $1,400 stimulus checks for many Americans, as well as an extension of more generous unemployment benefits for a further 6 months. Democrats had to remove a proposal to double the minimum wage to $15 per hour, and most Republicans still think it's too expensive given that the economy is showing signs of recovery. But the Biden administration says it's a crucial step to protect American households and businesses. Earlier, I spoke to Gregory Dacko, chief economist at Oxford Economics, about whether this bill is purely pandemic relief or, as Nancy Pelosi implied, transformative for the U.S. economy.
There is part of this plan that is essentially trying to address the issue of this K-shaped recovery, this issue that some families have been doing relatively well and have, in some cases, not seen tremendous disruptions to their income, have benefited from a very strong stock market. And meanwhile, other families have faced unemployment, reduced hours, reduced wages, which has left their income depressed and have not been able to spend just as they would have, especially in the absence of fiscal aid. So this program not only helps these families at the lower end of the income spectrum, as well as unemployed families, but it also addresses longstanding inequality issues, including, as you mentioned, via the child tax credit. So yes, I think to some extent, this does do more than just relieve the strains from the COVID crisis and addresses the inequality issue. And that's been one of Biden's main point on his political agenda.
Is there a risk, do you think, that this stimulus bill is in fact too much, that it could overheat the economy, which is already showing signs of recovering from its worst contraction in decades?
I don't think so. I think we have to be careful with the term overheating. We are in the midst of a very severe crisis. The economy contracted 3.5% last year. That was the most severe, most rapid decline in economic activity since the World War II demobilization. So a very deep contraction. We're going to come out of it strong with this fiscal stimulus and the improving economic situation and this fiscal stimulus. We should see growth around 7% for the U.S. economy, which would once again become the locomotive at the global level. But I think the risk of overheating is overdone. We are still in an environment that is largely disinflationary. We still have 9.5 million fewer people employed than we had pre-COVID. And so while we will see transitory inflationary pressures over the spring and into the summer, I don't think we're going to be in an environment where inflation spirals out of control.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street rallied as that stimulus bill was passed, although the tech-heavy NASDAQ did pare back after yesterday's huge gains. It closed just below the flat line there. The Dow Jones hit a new record high as it closed up over 460 points, or about 1.5% there. The major European indices closed mostly higher, just the FTSE 100 in the red in London. We saw Frankfurt's DAX breaching 14,500 points for the first time in a new record high close. The U.S. state of Texas is lifting a mandate on the wearing of masks against the advice of the Centers for Disease Control. The move is putting businesses in a tough spot, forcing them to decide whether to require their customers to wear masks or not. Monty Francis has the story.
As businesses reopen across Texas, the decision of Governor Greg Abbott to lift the state's mask mandate has many scratching their heads. Not only is it against the advice of health experts, but business owners say it unfairly puts the onus on them to step in to ensure the health of their customers and employees.
I'm sorry, that's the rules. If you want to come into my business, you have to be respectful of other people. Somebody else could be in here. That's just what it is.
Masks have become a politically charged issue, and some merchants fear their clientele will take their cues from the governor rather than from them. Legal experts say despite the state guidelines, federal law supports a business owner's right to refuse service.
You do not have a constitutional right to enter a particular store or a particular place of business. People should realize that businesses are entitled to ask them to wear a mask.
Even if they didn't enforce mask rules, businesses say they're in a no-win situation, at the center of a political fight, no matter what they decide.
Really a challenging situation there for businesses across the state of Texas and any other states, Mark, that do decide to loosen those restrictions.
Kate, thank you very much indeed. As ever, Kate with the business, great to see you.